Hi everyone. Thank you very much for inviting us, or me, to come and talk here. My name is Daniel Peterson. I'm the creative director at Screen Interaction, which is a small company based out of Kista here in Stockholm. We mainly focus on sort of design innovation. Just a few sort of facts for you. We are 76, 18 nationalities, 38% women. We were very proud of being sort of in the tech business. And we have an office here. It should be Kista. We're in Dubai. We also have a small node now in Umeå, which is a kind of connection to both the design school and the university up there. So we hope that we can sort of generate a bit of innovation or some interesting stuff. We work with both we sort of bridge sort of digital physical domain, we say. We work with everything from robotics to mobile apps, you know, so it's pretty large span. We're, what are we, 26, 27 designers, roughly 40 developers or more technology-oriented people, and then the rest is more management and people like myself, I guess. We're people-centered, so everything we do in terms of technology, you know, or from design or whatever, we always put sort of people. We center it around people. So in the beginning, we talk to people and interview them, etc., in order to understand what we're going to do, even sort of frame opportunities, etc., for the clients we work with. And kind of later on in the process, from concepting, we test it, we prototype it in all sorts of ways, and in the end, so you tested, you know, accessibility, usability, you know, there's all kinds of things in the end to get it really right and sort of pixel perfect. So our view on this is that you know, whatever we do in sort of this technical field, we try to use people, not use them, but we work with people, we invite them to the conversation and the discussion, and we look upon that as sort of fuel for the innovation. We work in banking. One of the things we do is Länsförsäkringar, is their mobile bank app. Social security, so that's Arbetsförmedlingen, Försäkringskassan. Media, it's TV4, maybe some of you are football fans, so you're using the football channel. And then industry, it's everything from ABB, Ericsson, etc. So, try to do that quick. What I'm here to talk about now is more towards kind of, you know, everyone here is very aware that we're trying to digitalize everything, you know, put it into the computer, or, you know, make it some sort of, turn it into an algorithm so we can scale it, etc. But there are sort of things going on outside of that. You could say it's kind of fuel for it, you know, it's helping and it's going much, much faster. So I thought we'll just kick this off with sort of, there's, you know, a few, maybe you can call them megatrends or, you know, big overarching things. And one of those things is like everyone here is using either Outlook, or you have your mobile phones for like planning everything, and you know, you even plan, I plan things with my wife, and we send ourselves invitations for things so we don't forget to pick up the kids, etc. You try to sort of time slot everything into this kind of, and it's supposed to work, and then you end up in the subway and it's stop. So but I think all of us is kind of, you know, we can feel this sort of pressure, etc. And everything is turning into, you know, kind of becoming this sort of hyper efficient, and we're trying to utilize all types of tools to make it so. Also sort of space, etc., and kind of, you could call it like scarcity of resource. Kind of in cities like Stockholm, it's really expensive to live, so people start Airbnb-ing out their places, you know, and kind of underutilize resources when they're not there. And you know, it's a big trend, so we don't need to talk about Airbnb. But ethics, morals, responsibility is another thing that's sort of coming up. You all heard about the global goals. That's like the 17 global goals that was launched by UN. But I think there's other things as well. You have the Snowdens, you have like whistleblowers, Panama, I think fairly lately, probably many aware of that, you know, where people actually, you know, more or less hand out the documents in the name of transparency something, so people actually are more aware of what's going on in the world. Super personalized. I think this is also sort of one thing. It's you know, this kind of algorithm approach, or the scale or digital approach actually enables. So we you know, we tend to profile things. Everything is kind of more or less connected to an identity, and we start learning, or the system start learning about ourselves, and then, you know, it will sort of give you ads, or it will give you things in order for you to kind of do, or where you want to go, suggestions, and kind of trying to sort of make that bit that was kind of very exclusive or quite expensive before. All that stuff, well, not all of it, but a big part of it we can actually do digitally. If you want to cut this a different way, you all seen this before. I would assume many here are the same as me, kind of in the middle here, kind of Generation X's. But besides that, you know, it's more of we tend to use technology differently. That's the main point with this. You know, okay, if we start out here with my parents, you know, of course they use sort of banking, etc., when they travel, but they're also extremely sort of savvy users of Facebook. So they plan everything with Facebook. They make Facebook events, and they so they use that quite a lot. Generation X's, like myself, I guess we're more of social proof in a sense. We want to show the people that we do things, that we're active, and so we tend to either use Facebook or all kinds of other channels. Millennials, I don't think they touch Facebook. It's already kind of old news for them. They're much more about sort of the kind of things need to move very, very fast. It needs to be extremely seamless. And I don't know how many people here who use sort of Snapchat. I just got a long sort of well, educated by my 10-year-old daughter. I was showing me all these news feeds and things, and I had absolutely no idea about. It's quite fascinating stuff. But the point here is, if, you know, when we build these things, be it whatever, logins, bank IDs, or whatever, we need to think about, you know, because one solution might not fit all. You might need to have sort of, you can call it like a different product that's actually kind of based on where you are and kind of the age of things, or how old people are using it. Let's jump to another sort of subject from this, artificial intelligence. And I wanted to sort of kick off with this. So kind of whatever, it seems like whatever new technology we invent, you know, we either do something X-rated with it or we start selling things with it. So this is the #1 prime slot for the Super Bowl. Kind of, so it's most expensive piece of ad in the world. And Amazon buys it and then chooses to launch Echo or Alexa, kind of their kind of like personalized service. I don't know if you've seen this. It's a little black thing. You kind of connect up to your Wi-Fi, and then it can start Spotify and do a few other things, and it can order stuff for you. But it's really interesting how to see, you know, that something that just very, very recently were very advanced, and most people did not have access to it. Now you just buy it, plug it in, and it actually helps you. I mean, there is a number of other examples for this. It's like a Tide button that you little more or less RFID chip you put on your wash machine, and when you click it, it automatically orders news out of tablets for your dishwasher or your washing machine or something like that. So there are sort of these kind of Internet of Things related things are sort of coming, you know, very, very slowly into, or rapidly maybe, you know, into our sort of everyday lives. Another thing here I wanted to say is robotics is also, okay, so how does that have to do with artificial intelligence? But this is done by a bank in Japan, and they use it as a customer service point. It speaks several languages, so we can also deal with sort of foreigners, etc. And it's actually proving effective, you know. And also, this is being used for. They've been trying it out at hospitals, and it, you know, in this kind of experiments they've done is they, you know, they even get more information out of their sort of the patients than doctors sometimes get. And this has more time, which is a good thing. Clara. You know, we talked about hyper efficiency before. Now we can just CC Clara or Amy, and there's a Viv, and there's a whole bunch of them since I actually did this presentation just a few weeks ago. It's being launched right now, and you CC them on your email, and they help you with calendars and sort out your invites. So perhaps it's kind of digital assistance we're going to go. And then we come to this kind of chatbots things, you know, where you have some sort of cognitive computing IBM talks about. And we try to utilize that, you know, for reading, for kind of analyze information, getting things out of it. This is Google's version, and this is probably your new Google prompt. You know, how and where you actually talk to it, and probably these bubbles will sort of bubble around a bit. I wonder why. You know, it's a good visualization, but I think it's going to look like this. It's not going to have an interface. You will just talk to it. It'll be much more natural, much more intuitive than kind of technology is, in a sense. I don't know if you've seen, there is an old version or scene, I should have brought it, from Star Trek, where kind of they travel back in time and Scotty the engineer is going to use a computer in kind of our time. So he picks up the mouse and starts talking to it. And it's kind of like, okay, it's old TV, but it's really sort of funny kind of way of sort of looking at it. It's like, why would you ever type? It would be sort of stupid. But anyway. Another sort of aspect of this, what's going on, is also, if you talk about realities, you all seen this, it's kind of, if you look upon it, it's kind of, it's a really interesting sort of first experience when you look upon it like this. It's a geek conference, because everyone sits there with headsets and trying to be somewhere where perhaps they want to be, which is not there. But it gives us sort of, it gives us a lot of new things that we can do with it. The thing is, though, if you want to spread this around the world, even though that the new HTCs, the Samsungs and the Oculus, they're coming down in price quite rapidly. Some of them require your phone to stick in, which adds a few $100s, but it's still sort of coming down from the thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars it just cost them a few years ago. But this is happening as well. So this is like the Google version. They made the cardboard, and it's $10. I've seen versions which is much less, and now they're going to make even cheaper ones for like $1. You still need a phone, but phones are also coming down in price. And so you can kind of utilize this kind of virtual reality technology all over the world. And I don't know if you've seen the UNESCO, they made a three-dimensional video from one of the largest refugee camps. I think it's in Egypt somewhere there. And I think it's sort of, utilizing this and kind of hearing the sounds. It's a very sort of kind of immersive thing for, to create sort of empathy and understand how, or at least kind of see how it is in those camps. Because if we haven't been there, it's really hard to sort of internalize it in a sense. Then we take an angle on this. This is actually very new. It's just released a few days ago. It's called hyperreality, and it's about augmented reality instead, which is kind of like the middle part between virtual and kind of reality. And it's sort of this is a cyberpunk-esque kind of vision of what it could be, and it's kind of half Japanese, half.
Great. Nice. Great.
Vas tarde. Apúrate si quieres una buena calificación.
Voy lo más rápido que puedo.
¿Has pensado en correr? Es saludable y eficiente.
Seguro que no hay más trabajos disponibles. Yo estudié para ser profesora y estoy haciendo mercados.
Y además puedes quedarte con los puntos de fidelización. Eres una monje afortunada. Tienes que confiar en la aplicación. ¿Te sientes inspirada? Gracias. Chao.
¿Quién soy yo? No, eso no es lo que quiero decir. ¿Para dónde voy? No. Puedo volver a empezar. Olvídalo.
Okay. So, I mean, it's kind of, if you look into the gaming world, etc., and if you go to, say, arcades, I mean, they're still around. They're actually huge. And if you go into, say, old pachinko parlors in Japan, etc., you have all these massive noise, etc., and everything is just kind of right in your face. So it's, from me, being sort of Swedish and, very accustomed to this kind of, say, Scandinavian design where, nothing is really supposed to exist. This is sort of the opposite. It's just right there and just cram everything in there. It's like, I don't know how many hundreds of messages I didn't even count. It's in there all the time. And this kind of sketch or this story, it's all based on points. Just as a tweak to this, it's if you actually see this movie, because now we talk about cyber threats, etc. here, the end of it, it's sort of a story of how this woman's identity then is being hijacked. So it's called hyperreality, and you will find it. So it's sort of have a look at that, and then you'll see how it could look in sort of the eyes of say an artist or so. Wearables is another thing that's going on. There's probably several in here who have sort of Apple iWatches or Fitbits or whatever. They're all around, but I think it's kind of interesting to bring them up because there are just more and more of them. Some of them are even sort of turning into, we build analog devices now. It's kind of like, the old classical watch faces are back, but we fill them with sort of really high-tech digital things. This is a few guys who used to work in Nokia, who now is kind of building sort of analog digital products. So it has all the features of a normal kind of high-tech or super high-tech cycling computer, but you can see three things. I think it's like cadence, time, and speed. And then all of the rest you take somewhere else. You don't need it on your bike just when you cycle. In your car, and things like that. But the other thing in kind of this world of wearables is Oscar, if you've seen that. It's an insurance service from the US where they, if you want lower premiums, they hand you a wearable and you're supposed to wear it. And you send in the data, and the more active you are, the lower your personal insurance premiums get. Same thing with AXA in Ireland. I don't know if you have any Irish people here. They built an app where you're supposed to run when you drive your car. And it was specific, in the beginning, it was specifically for learners. The problem was that, kids run out of batteries, we all do. And so the system, they hadn't really thought about that in the beginning. So there was problems, but I think it's kind of, it's coming back. So the more you use it, the lower your premiums for your car insurance get. So I think kind of this is the start of it. I wonder, we talked about Airbnb before, what's going to happen with when you Airbnb things out and you connect your locks to your whatever insurance companies and others. Sharing. In Sweden, we have a really interesting initiative or a company called Dreams, and they managed to do a deal with a bank called Ålandsbanken. So now you can actually share your savings. So you can have with your friends or your wives or whatever, and it's very sort of gamified, and they actively been working on different things, like, okay, I'm not going to buy this new funky t-shirt, I'm actually going to save the money, and that saves me like 400, so I physically drag drop it to the middle because I want to go diving. Or I skip the whatever, coffee, juice, whatever, and then, I save 28 crowns. So you can just do that. It's kind of like micro savings in a sense. And then you can, it gamifies, so you see what the other person have saved and you haven't. I think you can even click on it and see. But I think also the really interesting thing with that is it takes about 3 minutes to set up, and then you get an email like a day later from Ålandsbanken and said, well, your account is ready and you don't need any paper, it's paperless. So now I did this, and now I'm a customer of Ålandsbanken. I don't know them that well, and I think, because I am a customer, they have all my personal information. They can contact me in all kinds of things, whatever they think I should be doing later on. So we'll see how that pans out. Also from Stockholm, this was built here by an artist and a developer, and it's an Audi who say, okay, you can kind of take your friends, or you have a few people you can co-own and co-buy an Audi. Audi kind of takes care of the service and everything, and you just drive it, and then you figure out yourself. There's even an app where you can kind of timeshare it. But I think it's kind of an interesting concept, like a premium car brand in this case. Don't do the car-to-go kind of thing, or where you actually still kind of keep the control of the product. Or you can co-own a bank. This is from London. Mondo used to be a card, now it's a bank and an app, and they also invite you to their crowdsourcing platform. I wonder what happens to, it's kind of like you're actually, I don't know, maybe there isn't that much of a difference from being a stock or a shareholder in a bank, because you can, or this. I don't know, that's actually a good thought. But it's still kind of a startup, they're much, much smaller, so I would assume that, if you have influence or something like that on it, you could probably make a change or a difference. Trust. So there's been a little bit of talk about trust, and I think this is the interesting bit that Accenture did a while ago. So they say that trust is actually really the cornerstone. The guy previously that talked just before me talked about sort of a mobile login or a bank ID version in Austria, and I think, if we look upon sort of what happens in Sweden in that case, we already have sort of the bank idea, and we have the Swish, etc. And so we've been trying this for quite some time. But in terms of trust, it's who should own this? Should it be the banks? Should it be governments? Should it be telecom operators? I mean, or should it be any one of these huge players, or should it be some sort of smaller niche player that we actually have some sort of absolute trust? How do we know that we actually trust them? What can happen to them? Are they being bought by some big evil company, and then trust is out the door? I used to work in Nokia, and we did actually a big study on what do people trust Nokia? And at that time, Nokia products were just you could drive over them with your car and they still work. People really, really trusted them. So it was very much close to a bank, because banks are things that people kind of naturally sort of trust because you keep your money there. And then the discussion started, should Nokia be a bank, etc. But that was sort of different. But anyway, whatever we build, we need to start talking about sort of the morals of these things. And do these machines have morals? If you take, say, self-driving cars, which is a popular subject these days, is they are actually, because they can process information much faster than we do. They can take decisions much faster than we do. They can actually select what they're going to hit on the street. So it's sort of for a machine, you could call it a conscious decision of which route to take, or to minimize damage on you or whatever you're hitting, or something, whatever, or something else. There is another thing in this and that's integrity. What's the value of your integrity? I don't know if you've seen Amazon did this underground app where you can have free apps. So of course they pay for it by ad-based subscription, but they also tell you it's like, okay, we're gonna use the data in this, and we're gonna distribute to the people who make for us to actually see what people do, and we're gonna distribute it also to the people who makes the games, so they can improve the games. And then they go into virtual reality and you do the hyper thing. But it's really, they actually use identity or integrity in this case as more or less a token or a currency to have their sort of underground app system working. If we go to ourselves, in this, we also think 54% of us are for integrity. We want integrity. But 75% of us is also for sort of this super personalization, is we actually want, where we are more or less, we have to give out data in order for us to have personal services. So it's sort of today we have a dual-fold, kind of attitude or a relationship, I think, with, who we actually do business with in this sense. And this. But I think it's kind of interesting, it's like all these new tech companies that comes into the market, they have very, very little trust. We also know that they go, because they have to sort of run for the money, they also have, they can't be potentially, I would hope they would be moral and ethically sound. Maybe not all of them are. Now we come to identity. Who owns the responsibility of the identity? We saw an example here before. We can also see what's going on here. Take Sweden again as an example then. Bank ID, it's been around for a while now. A number of years ago, the company I worked with Försäkringskassan, and they built the VAB app. So if you have sick kids, you just go in and click, and you're done. Prior to that, you had to send in papers or telephone calls, etc. It took you actually quite a long time. When they did that, it was a prerequisite to install mobile bank ID on your phone. That app has the highest penetration rate of anything in Sweden. It's over 90% of sort of the group that need to use it. And it's what happened then was that mobile bank ID took off, and then because people had it, they started trusting it. Then they went into their banks, and then we can see the sort of the mobile banking thing. And these kind of curves, they pretty much align. It's quite interesting. Swish also comes out of here. So we already in Sweden, I think we already have sort of it's almost like digital cash. I can send you instantly up to, 25,000 or maybe even more in, a split second. It's no cost. It's just hard cash. If I go to any other provider, etc., they're going to take a fee. It might take a little bit of time, but we don't have that here. So I think it's a really, really interesting thing to watch, what happens now when they go into sort of kind of companies, etc., who charge those things. If you go to telecom providers, there's another big sort of really, really big entity in the world who can also do identity. So we built a project with them a while back ago where more or less a telecoms operator can just say, okay, we're going to be the garant, or the actually provides the security or the identity of this. And it works in some respects, I think. But it's also sort of one player in this. We can also have the state that sort of does it. So you can have, like Estonia did. I think they are one that's sticking out, who provided sort of a digital citizenship, not just for the Estonian citizens, but for anyone in the world who wants to, go there and do business, or do business from Estonia. And I met they actually have a CIO in Estonia, in their government, who kind of takes care of this. And he said, okay, Estonia is so small, so people don't want to come here, so we have to make sure that Estonia comes to everyone. And then he talked about this. It was I think it's kind of an interesting thought. Maybe we should have that in Sweden as well. Biometrics is another thing here. Cars, self-driving cars, or the new cars that are coming out, if you buy a Volvo or Mercedes, etc., they, if you do a little bit of analysis on the software, after a few minutes of driving, they can tell you who's driving. So if you're the driver and you're like the normal, he can tell you. Or if it's someone else, maybe they, if you profile it, again, he can tell you, he can text you, he can message you, and tell you that someone who maybe not should be driving the car is driving the car. But it's coming again, sort of in terms of not just, it comes to banks. So it's already done in sort of Spain. It's like Imagine Bank. Apple Touch ID is now, just since a few weeks, or actually 2 months, I think it is. So you can log into your bank services, etc., with just using your fingerprint. So to sort of summarize all these things up, okay, it was a lot of things from sort of many things. And I started out talking about, so we're quite fanatic about sort of utilizing people in this to make sense of abstract technology. The question is, I think, for everyone here who works in kind of the service space or provides a service, and I think the key question you should ask yourself is like, how well do you know your customers? It doesn't matter how well you do your wireframes or your pixels, etc. You need to know your customers, or the group that you actually are providing the service for. And as you saw before, you have actually one service might not fit all, in ages, etc., or depending on how we target them. One guy said here, because this type of technology is racing so fast, and we have problems, even we as individuals have problems keeping up with it. Organizations have huge problems in keeping up with it, because you're invested in sort of legacy systems since 20 years, and you're still looking for COBOL programmers and things like that. It's a challenge to really be fast. So you really need to sort of understand what you're doing. And I think kind of in order to be kind of very present, you need to know very precisely on what you do and when you launch it to people, and what also the effect would be. Kind of going digital, this is actual figures or numbers from a bank here in Sweden. This is the meeting when the bank meets the client, so either digital or physical. So digital is through the app or on your PC or something. And physical is when you go to an office. It's safe to assume that, equal numbers are probably in all major banks in Sweden. And also, I think it's interesting to note that, the interesting question is like, hey, where do these banks spend their money? Is it on digital or is it on physical? Because that's legacy, that's history. Just a little bit back to us again then, in order to, or as a suggestion when you guys go about kind of building these services, you need to work, you really need to, what I would suggest is you actually work with the people. You invite them, not just the clients, etc., but the real customers, the person who actually pushing the buttons on whatever mobile device or on computer, etc. Those are the ones you need to talk to. And you need to put that in sort of a business setting, etc., or in a context where you can understand, the implications of that. We do it in workshops, big meetings, etc. And it's all about. It's a lot of post-its. It might look a bit messy for a while, but when you actually analyze it, it can be fairly crisp in the end. This is what a normal, kind of very standardized, sort of customer-driven way of doing it. You meet people, listen to what they say, analyze that. What is the context? You actually generate. You can have more inputs. You do your generation, You build a prototype. A prototype can be anything from just a sketch, post-its, whatever, to something that's like on the dot, the pixel. It looks, there's no difference between a real system, but it's not a real system, so I can change it really fast. It depends on what type of information I want to get out. Of course, it requires a bit of research, etc. It's not, you just don't go out and hang out with people. Even that's a good thing. And then the other thing is ecosystem. Everything sits in a larger context. I think it was Eero Saarinen, a famous Finnish architect, who said, you design a chair for a room, and a room in a house, and a house in whatever surrounding it is. So everything kind of fits into a larger surrounding. In ecosystem thinking, everything is connected to each other. But I think kind of adding to this, it's like you need to put the people in the middle, because it's the person who will, in whatever end you're looking at it, will use this. So omni-channel platform, you don't do mobile just. It needs to always be mobile, whatever, bigger, tablets, computers, whatever. It needs to be on all of those, all together. So you can't just select out one. Services that you do. It's interesting when I talk to banks, when they say product, or insurance companies, when they say product, they mean it's like, okay, you can have a car insurance, that's a product from our side. When I talk about products, it's a digital or physical product that, either I can kind of tangibly give you or sell you, or it sits on a phone or something. And that is sort of the product development thing. And also, on that note, it's kind of when you go and talk to startups, etc., that's what they're considering a product. So I think we need to start aligning a little bit of talk or speak kind of in this world. So we talk about, and we actually, because then you can see that development cycles, etc., are, fairly similar. And then advice and collaboration. You always need to have an input. You need to know your customer, etc., and that needs to feed into kind of whatever system or so you're building. And I want to end it with this. So I think kind of anything learning here, from sort of super high tech, whatever it is, you need to sort of look into how people perceive this and how they sort of respond to what you do. Thank you very much, and I think it's fika time. Yeah.